I wanted to add something apart from what the review dealt with. The segregation is becoming different. In other words, we are seeing more and more this phenomenon of pulling strong populations by opening special classes, for example, excelling or excellence classes and other names. And we see that in some schools, the way to survive and to attract a strong population, even if the socioeconomic situation is low, in order for the school not to leave aside the people from the higher economic status. So it seems that the population is heterogeneous, but the students go to classes in a homogeneous, segregative way. This is a phenomenon that you have to take into account, and it might be even more problematic than the phenomenon of segregation based schools. Mike, please. Nahum Blas from the Taub Center. I would like to say that we actually wrote a study together with two people from the Bank of Israel, and reality is exactly the opposite. In other words, well, we have checked the reality in the classrooms according to this segregation index that Audrey chose to use in the elementary school and in the junior high school. And the reality is that this is a very rare phenomenon. The minute the school is integrative inside the school, the classes are identical. This is this is between 2000 and 2010, something like this. Sorry, in 5 years, reality doesn't change, and all in all, in fact, what we are showing is that if you create a reality of an integrative school, the school itself does not work in an opposite way, in the opposite way. Are there any other questions or comments, please? Rita Sever. As for the terms segregation, bidul, and hitbadlut in Hebrew are not one and the same thing. Hitbadlut, a group can prefer to be segregate, to be separate, but segregation means that it is being done in order to leave the inferior situation of some group. So I suggest to remain with bidul in Hebrew. Segregation has the two meanings. One, when it's the interest of the groups themselves, or when it is being done intentionally. What? Did you refer to the issue of internal migration between the communities, especially in the Arab community, going over to live in towns and cities? For example, Upper Nazareth. In Upper Nazareth, to almost 20% of the residents, the about about 20% of the residents are Arab, but the education services are given to them in the town of Nazareth, not in Upper Nazareth. So, what do you think about this way of segregation or inclusion or integration? Sorry, integration. Into the mic, please. I don't know if it's going to be relevant for you, but if you have 1 second, could you speak about magnet schools in the United States and charter schools that change this whole thing of the connection between the place of residence and the school? Maybe you'll answer now, and if we have some more time, we'll take another round. Into the mic, please. She has to speak into the mic. Into the mic, please. there are a number of statements, Mayas and Hagits and others concerning the question whether we refer to different dimensions, because Maya has also said that we are looking at a community, but it's not enough, and rightly so, or we look at a school but not at a classroom or a class, and there are also processes of internal migration. What do they mean in segregation processes? These questions are right, and the way and it shows what's missing. Maybe we should think about it. One of the difficulties that we are encountering in such a study is the availability of the data on the level of the analysis of these units. As for internal migration, there was one study. I'm not sure whether it had to do with the Arab population as well, but it speaks about internal migration in Israel, and these processes reinforce the segregation processes, because the stronger groups become stronger. They go to live in separate communities. So I don't have a decisive answer. I think that our review, well, we said it there, that it's a study that I, as a researcher, wouldn't call it a survey or a review. I would call it a description of the situation. It opens up a lot of other questions that have to be related to. Mike, please. Something about mixed towns and cities. I can't hear him. We wrote it down, but we didn't bring all the data. It is true that there are different processes when you're talking about uh, mixed towns vis-a-vis towns that are totally Arab, and and we didn't elaborate on that point. It was too much. It was beyond the scope of our review. So I would be very careful about it. As for Rita, I agree to your with your comment. It was some of the emotion or nervousness I had while talking, and when we speak about charter schools, despite the fact that our review didn't talk about that in a comprehensive way. However, we do know, at least as far as election is concerned or choice is concerned, that it increases segregation in the United States. We know about this phenomenon, and the discussion between education and geography gets also into the consideration what affects which factors affect what, whether a population migrates in order to get good education as processes, or it happens the other way around. And so at the end of the day, these there are processes of segregation, and it doesn't necessarily prevent them. Is there some time for another question or comment? But to the mic. Ran Reichman. The undoubtedly there is a connection between the place of residence and segregation. We have undergone significant processes, including a decision of the government and a circular of the Director General of the Ministry about the opening up of registration areas. Did you check whether the segregation, for example, in the state schools, secular state schools, opening charter schools, a a how this which one had a greater effect? Another question. Yael Kafri, I would like to add to Haran's question. Following this government policy of opening up the registration areas, when the government decided about it in 2010, now it's after 5 years. Now it's implemented in 35 local authorities. Is there any forecast about that, given the fact that in the past 2 years there is a totally new policy of parental payments in the state secular and the state religious schools, and it enables people to create differences between classes or in the same school, classes where parents pay a lot, even thousands of shekels. About opening up the registration areas in Israel, I even met with the person responsible for it in the Ministry of Education in order to see if we can do something with it. And their statement was that that it worries them whether it leads to segregation. They would like to examine this question. There is one study in Israel about Holon and Netanya, if I'm not mistaken, and it checked the influence or the effect on the polarization in where people live, and Achdut and others, and they found out that as for the state in the state secular education, though this polarization did happen. So it answers Hagit's argument that we don't have good accessibility to data. I think that a community or a town is a unit which is too big. We couldn't identify the different neighborhoods and the registration to different schools. So many questions have not been answered. One of our recommendations is to synchronize the data, because it's not that we don't have the data, but sometimes we can get them from different sources and use them in a rationalized way. So this is one of the things that we would like to do. And the very last question, please. Into the mic, please. Eran Meron, MIT. I wanted to ask, well, this event is a little bit pessimistic. Are there and is there any light in the data? Wait until the end of the conference. Well, there is a certain pessimism, but we have felt it from the very beginning of the conference day, because we know that the social inequality is very big in the Israeli society. The only light I could find in this review lied in the fact that even in weakened places, the students can succeed, and in this context to be even entitled to a matriculation certificate, even better than had they learned in Tel Aviv, for example, in a similar school. So the light is that people are doing a lot of things on site, and it's the different philanthropic organizations and municipalities and teachers and principles inside the system that can lead a change. It needs a lot of investment from the point of view of the human resources and also the financial resources. But it means that things change, things happen, and you shouldn't lose your hope. And on this optimistic note, we'll end this session. Thank you very much to all the participants.